highlights channel of the Ranveer Show. This is TRS Clips. Have you heard of someone called Abhijit Chavda?
No.
No? Okay.
Mhm.
So he's an astrophysicist
Mhm.
who's also a historian by passion. He's been on the show a lot. And he's possibly our most popular guest.
All right.
Yeah.
He comes here regularly.
regularly.
Okay.
Yeah. And whenever he comes and does an episode with us, World War III, and I hate saying that as a possibility, becomes a part of the conversation. Do these kind of World War III related conversations happen at your level of work?
So let me start by saying that the fact that there is a war in Europe was so unthinkable a year and a half ago, so completely unthinkable that we have this kind of war, that I would say I wouldn't exclude anything right now. So, but what I would say is that diplomats are there in order to avoid this scenario. That's our vocation. That's what we have to do. We have coming from Germany, I must say, World War III would be the biggest catastrophe ever, because you know what weaponry we have right now. You know what could happen in another world war. So I think our main task is now to try to stop and end this war. And let me say that I think that there is still a chance that this will end at some stage. Not very soon, unfortunately, but it will end without getting spread out to the rest of the world. And you see, I was now that, India holds the G20 presidency, and we had a meeting with the foreign ministers last week, and I was attending this meeting, and you see and you feel that there is a atmosphere in the room. Also, those who have good relations with Russia, that they are fed up with this war. Nobody wants this war because it has such a strong impact on the world economy. When whether it's fertilizer or energy procurement, and so South Africa and Brazil and all these countries, you feel there is a fatigue. And I felt that the Russian argument was pretty isolated. So that doesn't mean that the war will end quickly. I'm afraid that will not be the case, but I think there is still a big chance to contain it.
Okay. Do you feel that it's just Putin who wants to keep the war going and maybe not even the Russian diplomats?
I think in Russia you have this nationalistic mood. You have the television and social media. They are, really whipping them up, and everybody thinks that they are discriminated and unjust, treated unfairly. But the facts are that the biggest country on earth with a very small population, it's not even France and Germany together, invades another country to grab land. This can't be acceptable. It just can't happen. And everybody who thinks properly must see that this is not what we want. And therefore, the safety of borders as a very, very important part of the international order must be sustained. It is very important that this international order cannot be violated by the strongest. And that's why I think the West and other countries are so united against this war, because we feel it is a precedent for many, many other border conflicts. Border conflicts in this region, for example. You cannot have one nation that has more people and more weapons invade a smaller country, a weaker country maybe, and change the geographical situation. For what reasons? It's very difficult to understand why, because they change goalposts all the time. But I think the dedication and the commitment from our side is to make this war come to a stop, but not in a way that, Ukraine is the loser of this war.
The one thing I've learned through this podcast, again, by talking to a lot of people who are geopolitical observers, is that when you actually study history from a macro view, like from a really long-term view, you see that borders always change.
That's true.
And borders haven't changed in a long time now. I won't say borders haven't changed in a long time, but, more or less.
Yeah, I find it a good argument, actually, because you say borders are not something that are, it's not the Bible or the Mahabharata, it's something that is a deliberate. But, what we have learned, and this is the European experience after World War II, is that borders can be overcome in a completely different way. So between the European countries, borders are there between Poland and Germany, Germany and France, Germany and Holland, but they are completely permissive. You can go from one side to the other. You don't show your passport. You just cross them. When you want to have a good dinner in a French restaurant, you go just across the border. Or when you feel Dutch cheese is cheaper in Holland, you just go there. Or people go to fill gas in Poland, because it's cheaper. Basically, they go and cross the border. So the border is there. It marks the difference between two countries, but it is not a wall. It's just very porous and deliberately so. And this is a border management, I think, that pleases everyone. Germany has lost after the Second World War a third of its territory to Poland and Russia. And I think with the new situation, with Poland being a member of the European Union, Poland being a friend, basically, people go and see their parents' houses in villages that once were Germans, but are now Polish. And that works perfectly well. Nobody puts in question. And I think when you work with borders this way, you can keep them, but also overcome them at the same time.
As a diplomat, and I'm sorry I'm asking you this, but as a diplomat, are you given some sort of training for a war-like situation? If something is breaking out, do you all have protocols?
Sure. I mean, there are rules, international rules, what happens when war breaks out and how diplomats are treated and dealt with. But I would say we don't have a special training for wars. And let me make that clear here. I don't see a third world war coming right now. I say that with all caution because we didn't foresee the Ukrainian war also. But I think that's still another dimension. And nobody, including Putin, I would say, is interested in a third world war. Now, we have seen, and I talked about the First World War, I think nobody had foreseen by then what a terrible war that would be at the end of leading to the complete dissolution of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, for example. But so there are always, random situations but I think there is a clear commitment. And when you hear even the Chinese, when they speak, being very close to the Russians, they really don't want war in a large scale. So I'm pretty confident that the world powers, the leaders, and Prime Minister Modi being one of them, will do their utmost to avoid the third world war situation.
Do you think as a diplomat, the world is becoming a better place?
Yes.
You feel so?
Yes.
Or you think it's the same?
No, I think it's becoming a better place. It's a very unusual remark right now because we have this gloominess, war and everything. But when you look what happens in the world with medical progress, educational progress, economic progress, the awareness rising of what climate change means, how we change our energy, and I think we are in a very good phase of the earth. I don't want. If you ask me, would I like to live in another area? No way. I think it's the best world ever. And the fact that I sit with you here in this podcast shows, how close the world has grown, and that's also a very, very good thing. I think 50 years ago, it wouldn't have been possible in this way. So I think this globalization, with all the negative aspects to it, I think I would recognize that, has led to a new consciousness in many ways that is very good.
So these are playlists made especially for you. We've tailor-made learning experiences for you. DRS Clips.